one of the seniors repeatedly threw her load into my face. She struck me each week. She threw her load in my face, and I would get hurt.
Hello, Suzanne. Good evening. And what's the topic tonight?
Well, we've just started June. During this month and possibly this past month as well, many schools, especially colleges, are having their graduations in these few weeks. I say May because when I graduated from college, it was in May. Many other colleges and no doubt public schools or parochial schools will be having their graduations this month. But what I want to emphasize is college seniors just about to graduate, but have also been fiendish toward fellow students.
Okay, what do you mean by that?
Well, you always hear about teasing and bullying and sometimes even physical fights. That's what I'm talking about when I say some college seniors were mean or rude or even fiendish toward fellow students.
Okay, so are you speaking from my personal experience?
Yes.
Well, would you like to share?
It could happen to me. It could happen in numberless other schools.
Well, that's true, but do you want to share some stories with it?
Yeah, I suppose I could. Where I went to college, it was an all girls school with one of the buildings serving as a dormitory. Now, another reason I emphasize college seniors is that kindergarten, grammar school, and sometimes high school graduates still have a lot of school ahead of them. Some high school grads might want to start looking for jobs right away. But with college, once you graduate from it, you're officially at the end of your school career and are concerned with making your way in the world. But that doesn't mean that these college seniors were ideal citizens. I said about my having suffered at the hands and whims of students that ranked above me.
Well, what exactly did they do to you?
Well, the instant I started school, I had my hands full trying to adjust to living away from home during the school week and getting used to all my lessons. But instead, the seniors imposed a hazing ritual on the freshmen and humiliated the freshmen when they were supposed to be young ladies, not little children.
So what exactly did they do to you?
They would barge into the recreation room in the dormitory and make all the freshmen who were there stop whatever they were doing and perform silly tricks, Simon Says style. I remember I had to pretend several students did. We had to pretend we were pieces of cooking bacon. We were supposed to gyrate on the floor, and then after a while turn under to get cooked on the other side. But see, rolling around on the floor or vibrating on the floor is very undignified for young women who fancy themselves adults now that they're in college, and it's ruthless on the hands of the higher ranked students that make them behave undignifiedly.
Yeah, I guess there's not much dignity in pretending to be a sizzling piece of bacon, right?
Well, toward the end of the hazing period, the freshmen were made to go one step further by masquerading as outlandish forms of people. Sometimes old men and sometimes babies. But that meant the students who commuted to and from college had to ride their transportation modes in costume. In public, people who walked the streets had to do so in public because there were no changing facilities for regular clothes versus masquerade outfits.
Right, and because it wasn't Halloween, it was unusual. So what did you have to dress up as, a baby or an old person?
Both. One day it was old people, the next day it was babies.
And what did your parents say?
Well, when I complained about it to my parents, saying what they were going to make us do to top off the week, and that I felt very embarrassed and ashamed because I was being made to behave a juvenile style. My mother said, "You mustn't think of yourself as such a good person that you don't go without it. You go along with it." Well, she had never been through such a humiliating process when she was young.
Because did she go to college, or maybe they didn't do hazing rituals?
No, she didn't.
Oh, that's
neither of my parents did.
Right. So they weren't familiar with the process of hazing and that kind of stuff.
Well, I explained to my mother how the seniors were making the freshmen act undignifiedly and stupidly, but my mother said, "You go along with it." Boy, that was really bad advice.
Right. So you didn't find that helpful?
No.
Okay. What would have happened if you said they didn't want to do it? Non-conforming freshmen were supposed to be summoned to something called Kangaroo Court, which was a court of punishment when they had their hands full already with a full academic load, and the majority of them having to live away from home. But what if you didn't want to go to that silly court?
If I didn't feel like going to Kangaroo Court?
Yes.
Well, I never received a summons, but then on the last day, when it was time for the Kangaroo Court, all the freshmen were rounded up, summons or not summoned, and forced to go to Kangaroo Court anyway. Then we had to do our undignified antics in front of the whole student body and the faculty.
Oh, so faculty was aware of this?
What?
So faculty knew that this was going on?
The faculty knew about it, but they didn't do anything to stop it.
So did they think this was mostly like a harmless fun?
It was no fun.
Not for you, but I'm saying the rest of the people think that this was possibly like a fun thing to do, or no?
My roommate didn't go along with it either, and yet no one gave her a summons to Kangaroo Court. She wasn't penalized at all.
So she was able to stand up for herself because she didn't want any part of it?
Yeah.
So is there a reason why you didn't do the same?
She said the exact same thing that I said. I had my dignity to preserve.
But how come you didn't just refuse to do it like she did?
You mean, why was I penalized and she wasn't?
No, I mean, but you dressed up, but I'm saying she didn't, so you could have done the same, no?
I didn't go all the way with the themes that the seniors decided upon. I preserved as much of my mature appearance as I could.
Okay, but what I'm saying is that if you stuck to your guns like your roommate did, they probably would have left you alone.
I don't believe that, because when hazing was over, the seniors were supposed to treat the freshmen with respect, but some ruthless seniors singled me out and made me a target of pranks, false accusations, and all sorts of misdeeds. As long as those seniors were still in the college.
What kind of accusation?
One time in the dormitory, three seniors came to my floor when they had said, "You stick to your own floor and don't improve and don't impinge on us." And they forbade trespassing, and here they were trespassing on the freshman's floor. Well, they called me out and said that there was a phone call for me in the pay phone on the seniors' floor. So I went up and answered it. It was a man pretending to be my Spanish teacher, trying to romance me. Now, I recognized from the man's voice right away he was not the Spanish teacher, but I never found out who he really was, or how these senior girls gotten hold of him to do part of their dirty work.
But the good thing is
I hung up on the man, and those seniors said, "How dare you hang up on your Spanish teacher? You'll get a bad grade. He wasn't the Spanish teacher. You know it." "Oh, we know everything about you. You're in love with him." They accused me of being in love with the Spanish teacher. The farthest I ever went with this gentleman was to speak conversational Spanish in the classroom as best as I could, because that's what he expected of all his language students.
Right, but maybe they were jealous. Maybe you spoke Spanish better than they did.
None of those three girls I ever saw in my Spanish classroom.
So why do you think they were picking on you?
Because I had refused to go along with hazing and had stood up for myself. So
So that they accused me falsely of being in love with the Spanish teacher. The next day, I went to the dean and detailed the incident, the false alarm, for her, and gave her the names of the guilty parties.
And what happened?
I don't know if the guilty parties were somehow penalized or punished because they never said anything to me, and they did not change their fiendish ways as a result.
So did they continue to tease you, or?
They continued to mistreat me. There was another time that one of my early childhood education teachers, that's what I majored in, had to be absent at the time when one of his classes usually met. So he instructed the class to talk about educational issues and told me to take notes. So there we were, settled in the room by ourselves, and then we had hardly started when in came several senior girls who were not enrolled in that course. They sat around me on the floor, and while I was trying to do what I was supposed to, they were tickling me, they were pinching me, they were reaching up through my clothes and making it impossible for me to do what I was supposed to. One of the girls went further by grabbing my pen hand and making me draw scrawls all over the notes. "Oh, look what you've done," she then said. "Don't you know that neatness counts?" Idiot.
And what did you do after that?
Well, today I blame myself for not having written the notes again from scratch and describing the incident, but I did put some notes at the bottom that we had been invaded upon, and one girl made me do these scrawls, but I also told the dean about it.
So while this was going on, did anyone in your class come to your defense, or they were just watching it?
They were just watching, and it's a sad thing that no faculty member ever came into the room to catch the malicious seniors in the act.
But none of your classmates helped you out?
No.
Why do you think you were singled out, and why are all these things happening to you?
Because I spoke up. I stood up for myself. I told them, "Stop it, go away," but they wouldn't.
Because you told me once that your classmates felt that you were strange. Do you want to talk about that?
I was a strange girl all through school.
But why do you think you were labeled as such?
I went in for sophisticated high class music instead of pop music and rock and roll. They would get together for talking sessions in the dormitory rooms, and when I would come in and start joining in with them, they would start pulling down at their night clothes to expose their necks and shoulders. They were trying to bare themselves. I never did that. And also they spoke profanely.
So the fact that they looked at you as a strange person, did that bother you?
Yes. Because what had I done to any of those? they always took the first move.
So you were just minding your own business, but they didn't like that you were different.
They did what?
They didn't like that you were different.
Yeah, I was minding my own business.
So why do you think people act like that towards individuals that are different than the majority of people?
They're taught to believe somehow that anyone who's different is inclined toward bad behavior, inappropriate actions, or even criminality.
So do you feel that most people are conformists, and then some individuals like yourself that are different end up being singled out because of that?
Yeah.
I mean, that puts you in a good company, Suzanne. I mean, most interesting people are different.
Well, that's why I suffered all through my school career, but it was worse in college because I had to stay in the dormitory during the school week, and the malicious students who were also dormitory students had virtually unlimited access to me. In the weekends, I would go home, and my parents would ask me, was I getting along with the others, and I was afraid to tell them the truth because in the past, when I had been singled out and maliciously teased by other students, I complained to my parents and the teachers about it. But they said, ignore those students and they won't bother you. But when I tried to ignore them, they did not stop bothering me.
So their advice was kind of useless to you?
Yes, because when I was trying to ignore some people, they realized right away that I was ignoring them, or I had been told to ignore them, but then instead of giving up, they resorted to other means. They resorted to other methods.
Such as? Like, what would they do if you ignored them?
Are you talking about college or earlier in school?
In general, if you ignored them, what would they do then?
They would figure out another way to make me suffer, and then mistreat me more.
So, what do you think what was the solution? Did you come up with one?
I couldn't, because I was told, ignore those people and they'll stop bothering me, but they didn't. And it didn't do any good to complain to my parents, because they didn't sympathize with me at all. Instead, they castigated me. They scolded, lectured, and made me feel that I was worthless.
Okay, well that wasn't good.
Well, I better get on to my point. These college seniors who were ruthless and mean to other students will pay a penalty later in life when they least expect it. Now, there's no moves of vengeance. There was no vengeance on my part or any of the other students that might have suffered the same fate in other schools. nature would run its course and have its way with these culprits.
Mm-hmm. And then how is that going to happen?
Well, the most sensible kind of punishment would be when those graduating college seniors got on with their lives, got married and had their own families, but then inevitably somehow their children, the next generation, became the next generation of either bullies or victims. Either way, complaints would be made to the parents, the original generation of troublemakers. And therefore, that original generation of troublemakers had their comeuppance because now their children were in the same situations that the original troublemakers had imposed on fellow students.
Right. So I agree with you. Having children would be a terrible, terrible punishment for them.
But would the parents have sense enough to realize that this was what goes around comes around?
Right. So
that they were being made to atone for their own past misdeeds.
Yeah. So do you believe in karma? Is that what you're talking about?
What?
Do you believe in karma?
What's that?
Well, okay. That you will eventually get your own comeuppance, like what you just said. It's fine.
I was never taught the word karma. I was taught just about your misdeeds catching up with you either later in life or in the great beyond.
Right. Well, it's the same principle, same thing.
There's also when graduation is coming up, I see some slogans. One thing I've seen on some cakes, decorated cakes, is "The world is yours." Well, that makes the graduates feel like they're omnipotent; they can accomplish anything. But they don't say. But the message doesn't say that with good times also come bad times.
Right. Well, I think there were only 2 college graduates who could have had that statement, and it was true. What do you think? Who could have that been?
What do you mean only? Did you say only 2 times?
Well, only 2 individuals in recent history could have had that slogan on their graduation cake, and it would have been true, I guess.
You know about report cards, keeping track of students' grades as well as their behavior as well as their academic performances. Something sensible to do if and when the faculty of a school repeatedly hear names of students that are troublemakers, they should keep lists. And then just on the verge of graduation, all the troublemakers would be summoned into a room and made to face the faculty, who would then have their lists with them and remind them who did what to whom.
Oh, so you think that they should have like a punishment room on graduation day?
They should have a final scare before graduation.
Okay, that's an interesting concept, Suzanne. I never heard of such a thing. Would you propose that to your town's board of ed, maybe?
I didn't understand.
You could bring that concept to the board of ed meeting in your town.
I didn't know who the members of the boards of education were in any of the schools I went to.
Well, every town has one, so it's a public knowledge. You can look that up. But I'm saying you can do that now. It could be an interesting proposal.
Or when would big educators necessarily listen into our broadcasts and hear what we're saying, and then they take note of what I'm saying should be done?
Well, I seriously doubt that would happen, but I like the idea of a faculty roasting the bad students at the end of the school year. So, I mean, I don't think anyone would actually do that, but it sounds like a funny idea.
It's not meant to be funny. It's meant to be retaliation.
No, I know. Did you ever see those comedy roasts for any like famous celebrity or?
I saw them listed on TV, but I never watched any of them because, it was unkind for celebrities to be given ribbings when, what had been the natures of their achievements? Were they considered good or bad people? My father said that big boasters like Howard Cosell and Muhammad Ali deserved ribbings.
Well, I'm just thinking it would be funny, or maybe not funny for you, for the faculty to do a roast of like really terrible students at the end of their school year. What I'm saying, I like your idea, Suzanne, but okay, I don't think anyone would actually put it in practice, but I like it.
Well, actually, there was one time when a fellow student of mine was put on the spot on the last day of school. When I was in 6th grade, it was the last day of school, and the students were getting their report cards and nervously looking about had they been promoted. Well, I got promoted, but then one boy in my 6th grade class who had been giving me trouble all year started to chase after me. I ran away, and somehow I bumped into a big box which toppled over and spilled containers of something that could have been paint or I don't know what it could have been. I got some stains on my socks. So the 6th grade teacher took the report card back from that boy, saying that he would not be allowed to move on to the next grade until he paid for the damage he had caused.
I see. Well, maybe he just liked you. I mean, it's 6th grade. Boys are kind of goofy at that age.
There were plenty of malevolent girls too.
I know you told me the horror stories about your college experience. They were all girls, right? So what you were saying, closing, what's the lesson that we should learn?
Presuming that everybody ever born is born with a conscience, they have to watch themselves all the time when interacting with other people, especially during school, because report cards are kept on behavior as well as academic performance. If you prove to be too troublesome, you can get your comeuppance either just before you graduate or later in life when you've mostly forgotten about your school experiences, and then something comes back to haunt you.
Okay, and then what's the message to the audience? What would you like them to?
To whom?
To the audience, people who are listening to this.
Well, those that are parents should think back. Were they troublemakers in school? And if they have children, how did their children behave? Were they good children, or some of them bullies or victims? The next generation of malefactors. Because if any of the parents have children that are troublemakers now, then that's the parents' punishment for having been malicious when they were at school age.
All right. Well, thank you, Suzanne, for sharing this, anti-bullying message, right? And so this is your anti-bullying message.
Yes.
Right. So, all right. Well, thank you for sharing another topic with us, and enjoy the rest of the evening. I'll talk to you soon.
Okay, Boris. We'll think of another. We'll think of another topic maybe later this month.
Sure. Yeah. Anytime. Just give me a call, and we can do another one.
Okay.
All right, Suzanne. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye. We were talking. There's an item you can add. When we were talking about ways that I was physically assaulted by malicious seniors, I told you about the several students not enrolled in a course hoarding in on a session and actually assaulting me physically.
Yeah, you mentioned that.
All right. Well, another instance, which happened all through the school term, was that the dormitory students once a week had to collect their bedclothes and bring them down to a room where they were collected and noted for a laundry service to take them away. That was my job during my freshman year, to collect the laundry and make note of what was brought in, and then when the laundry came back, I had the responsibility of calling them down to get the stuff back. Well, one of the seniors repeatedly threw her load into my face. She struck me each week. She threw her load in my face, and I would get hurt. I resorted to standing behind the door, but when this girl came down and didn't see me in the collection room, she threw her load over the open door, and I still got struck from where I was standing behind it.
Oh, that's a terrible thing, Suzanne. So she repeatedly threw her load in your face. That's just awful.
Yeah, and then she resorted to hitting me on the head with her load when I tried to go into hiding.
Well, I don't even know what to say about that. That's beyond terrible.
Well, that's something to add on to what we were talking about when we were talking about really fiendish misdeeds.
Certainly, yes, absolutely.
Okay.
All right. Well, thank you, Suzanne.
All right. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye.